PC.
Let's rock!
When you depend on me,
To give you
weapons
insight
and
and information for your journey and still you still shit to try to hurt me. Life's tough.
When you're an NPC.
It is the 1 year anniversary. 1 year ago today we started this little show, and 365 days later we are still going strong here. So, whenever I started this back in February of last year, I started off with a more obscure piece of crap. A 10-page long game called Wetsuit, which I'm fairly certain is more of a joke than anything legitimate. So, considering that we are now at 1 year, I figured the best way to cap off this whole thing is to do something notorious. Something certainly bad, but not just bad, the next level of bad, one of the worst games out there. And we'll get to more on that in just a second. But really, what constitutes a bad game? We have covered a great deal of them over the past year. You have bad games like Blood, that came so close to hitting the mark, yet fell flat due to minor errors in writing as well as the artwork. You have games like Kindred of the East, that were well-meaning yet poorly conceived projects that fell into the realms of poor taste and extreme niche markets. You have games like Everything is Dolphins and Sons of Liberty, that really didn't have any market for them at all. And then you have games like Leading Edge's Aliens and Call of Cthulhu D20, whose systems were either terrible or to the point that they just really weren't great for the game's premise. And yet, I still have my own share of critics, like people calling Call of Cthulhu D20 a masterpiece. Yeah, sure. D20 Call of Cthulhu is to masterpiece as the Cleveland Browns are to success. Either way, there are a few games, a very few games, that manage to hit just about every conceivable level of fail imaginable. The ones that are so wild, so inept, that you cannot even fathom how they were conceived. There are some of the most notorious games out there. You have things like The Spawn of Fashan, as well as Senzar or Ra-O-Wa. I mean, even the creme de la creme, Fatal. Now, Fatal is something that we're saving for another day, but, I mean, how bad could we really get? What level could we... What the fuck is this thing? What am I even looking at? I defy you to tell me what the fuck is even going on here. A woman trapped behind a steel door is being roasted alive, while on the outside a shirtless woman with some of the worst boobs I've ever seen double-fisting handguns in a velvet pink room, while a skeleton, a drill, Satan, and Doc Ock from Spider-Man are all trying to grab at her waist. Alright, whoever said don't judge a book by its cover, go screw yourself. No way. You can look at this cover alone, and tell that you were in for one of the most trying and painful experiences of your entire life and mine. Look at this thing. Never have I seen a cover that more succinctly describes the failure that is to come in the pages to follow. Already, we know we are in for a different kind of experience of unprecedented, sexist, and inept proportions. This thing is a treat, starting off with some of the worst artwork imaginable. I mean, okay, maybe I'm being a little harsh on the artwork. After all, you know, the 80s and the 90s were a simpler time when it came to graphics. We were still working out stuff. Things from the past don't look as good now. Maybe, after looking back on it, we can... It was made in 2008. 2008. What the crap is this? 2008. This is unexcusable. This was the year that gave us WALL-E, Grand Theft Auto 4. Animation had taken massive leaps since the early 90s, which is what this looks like it comes from. This is just insanity. Yes, I get it already. I should not hold a small-time game to multi-million-dollar projects of animation. I get that. But there is a huge leap between poorly categorizing something and also having artwork that would be laughed off the set of Eiffel 65's video or the TV show Reboot, which came out in 1994. You couldn't find anyone to do a better job than this? Hell, DeviantArt was at its fucking height in 2008. You couldn't find anyone to make anything better than this. And it just gets worse from here. Each page seems to slap you in the face with bad artwork. It is like being dumped with ice water over your head each time you see a new picture. Not to mention, page after page with just blatant objectification, sexist, just disgusting, sleazy fan service. This artwork is enough that Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball would blush. Hell, I might have to get a black box out at some point, because I don't know whenever I'm going to flip the page and suddenly just see a poorly created naked monstrosity on a page. I'm really glad I don't have a physical copy of this thing. Even just looking at the PDF, I feel dirty, let alone picking up a physical copy that would just look like it's covered in sleazy grime that would also make me walk away with something questionable. Oh, and it gets even worse from here. Not only do we have some of the worst artwork imaginable, combined with pure objectification and unabashed sexism in its creation, but we also have feats, perks, and flaws like, and I quote, cooks like a whore, eats like a bird, frigid, cheap, drunk, and so forth. And then one of my favorite parts about all of this is at the beginning of the book, there has a little blurb that's like, why play hot chicks? And I love the fact that even in their own book, they have to justify why this thing even exists. But it is one of these great quotes, and I quote, some men like to play women in fantasy games. It doesn't even come across as if they're even excited about this themselves. From the understanding, it's like they know that this is some extremely niche market that they're selling to of a very few select people who are going to play it. Also, before we go any further into the systems as well as the premise of this game, why the hell is this book nearly 500 pages long? Seriously, the PDF clocks in at 454 pages. The Handbook of D&D 5th edition is 293 pages, and Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition, the one with all the mythos of Vampire the Masquerade, is around 500 pages. What in God's name does Hot Chicks need over 400 pages for, whenever you could tell everything in this book with 50 or less? So sorry, we have to show off more of that just absolutely wonderful Dakar Unlimited work at play to include a PDF that is well over 400 pages. The premise itself is fucking ludicrous. Apparently in this world, demons and other evil creatures of the night see humans as objects. In particular, they see human women as a prize for reproduction, and the more attractive they are, the more interested these demons are in them. You play as hot chicks who are, and I quote, had enough of being objectified and used, who are prepared to draw on their inner strength to defeat the enemies of our future. Which is hilariously ironic whenever the creators of this book, both guys, are still actually objectifying women to such an absurd degree to sell their weak-ass product. It's kind of hilarious to see the creators so blissfully unaware of their own misgivings that they instantly paint themselves as the bad guys in their own damn game. Then, as if some sort of shit icing on top of the shit cake, the system is also horrendous as well. Their inverted D20 system is... I don't even know what it is. It is certainly unique in the same way that square-shaped tires would be unique. Essentially, its whole idea is taking the D20 system created for D&D and inverting the usage, putting more of an emphasis on D4s instead of D20s. Let me take you to the character sheet near the back of the book just to show how needlessly complicated this thing is. Oh great, okay, Comic Sans is straight up from Windows font right here, cool. Okay, yeah, moving on. Look at this sheet. Just look at it. Did you think a game like Hot Chicks would have a character sheet more in-depth than D&D or even Shadowrun? What is this? This thing is like 90% skills that include seduction checks, export checks, whatever the fuck that means, sewing, which I'm sure comes in handy in this fucking game, dancing and beyond. Running speed, deadlift, and so forth follow several complex equations to figure out. Yeah, I know that it is strength plus lift times 50, but in truth, if you have to include advanced enough levels of multiplication that you cannot instantly do it in your head in seconds, simplify your game! The game includes budget items similar to games like Spycraft, and a lot of their skills is similar to the game like D&D. It is honestly just stealing aspects of other RPG and using them in a Frankenstein's monster sort of mishmash of crap. This game is a load of horseshit. I don't know what else to say about this thing. It is easily one of the worst games I have ever had the misfortune of reading. The artwork is atrocious. The premise is sexist bullshit. The gameplay is a horrid amalgamation of other games like Spycraft and D&D. It is needlessly complicated and painstakingly long for a game that is really nothing more than a shitty gimmick. This game is getting a massive miss, as well as the middle finger award for misses. This game is absolutely terrible, easily earning the moniker of one of the worst RPGs ever made in all of existence. I'm tapping out. I'm done. Let's look forward to year 2 of Crit or Miss. It's definitely going to have just as many roller coasters as before.